You turn on Do Not Disturb. Slack's muted, phone's down, you're finally free to focus, right? Except you're not, because 5 minutes later you're checking your phone anyway, just in case. And that's not focus, that's notification anxiety. Because the real problem isn't the noise, it's that your brain now expects it. Everyone says that the fix is simple just mute everything. But studies show that for a lot of people, do not disturb doesn't actually help. Sometimes it even makes things worse. That's why in this video I'm breaking down the psychology of ping fatigue, why silencing isn't always the answer, and how to build a system that actually protects your focus. You've probably seen those productivity videos that all say the same thing. Mute notifications, turn on Do Not Disturb, and problem solved. But if you're watching this, chances are it didn't work. And that's why you're still searching for something that actually does. A lot of tools promise to force focus, like mute all notifications, block all social apps, like forcing productivity through isolation. It might actually work for some people, but for some people, it can also make things worse. I've actually been through a lot of scenarios myself, and let me share my observations with you. There was days when I would drop everything to answer a Slack ping from a teammate, and after I've already switched to their branch and started investigating, obviously I lost track of whatever I was doing before. And about 10 minutes later, I get a message saying, never mind, I figured it out. That literally makes you want to mute everything. And there were also times when I would be waiting on important email, not urgent, but something that I couldn't plan without, and I would put my phone on Do Not Disturb and try to focus. But instead of focusing, I kept checking anyway. That's notification anxiety. The kind of restless waiting that makes you feel like you cannot move forward until something happens. And when you work remotely, those pings start to feel like the proof that the workday is still alive. Those tiny signals that say, hey, you're in the loop. So when it's silent, your brain starts to search for the next one. And when you're on vacation, it's total opposite. My phone barely has service and I don't even notice. No notifications, no stress, no fear of missing out. And the point that I'm trying to make is that the same do not disturb can feel very different even for the same person. It depends on the context, your mood, your workload, and how much certainty do you need at the moment. So if muting alone doesn't fix it, then what does? In order to answer these questions, we need to look at how notifications are designed and what they do to your brain every time you check. So why is it so hard to ignore a ping? Or why that tiny little red dot feels so urgent even when you know it's not? Because notifications, they are built like slot machines. That's the core of ping fatigue, a kind of mental exhaustion born from endless alerts that teach your brain to expect the next signal. Most of them, they don't matter. But once in a while, there's always one that does. And that unpredictability is what hooks you. In behavioral science, it's called variable reward. The same principles that casinos use to keep people pulling the levers. Every time you check, your brain whispers, maybe this is notification that matters. And that tiny maybe is enough to keep you checking again and again. Even if you mute everything, that habit, it doesn't just vanish. Your brain still craves the pull, the tiny what if. And until you start noticing that loop, that silence can feel just as loud as the noise. And the cost isn't just a distraction. Research shows that interruption can take 20 to 30 minutes to build the momentum back. So instead of fighting silence with different productivity hacks, I started to take control by classifying and managing each type of notification that I receive. So I split them into three categories: work, social, and others. That includes promotions, newsletters, etc. And each category also has its own rules for me, so let me talk about it a little bit more in detail. So first is work notifications, the ones that actually matter and move my day forward. Slack, emails, messages from teammates. I split them by how much focus I need. When I'm in collaboration time, everything stays on. I reply to Slack, answer emails, unblock whoever's waiting. My response time during those hours is literally probably less than 10 seconds. When I switch to focus work, only direct messages and priority emails can reach me, the rest can wait. And during deep work, everything is muted. Well, almost everything. If I'm waiting on something important, like certain email or a build result, I'll just let that one channel through. Because sometimes knowing that the one thing that you're waiting for can reach you is what keeps you from checking every few minutes. That alone solved most of my notification anxiety. Next is social notifications. Group chat, family texts, or my cat's Instagram updates. They wait until I'm done with work. When I'm off the clock, it's actually the time when I want to see them. And muting them during work doesn't necessarily mean that I care less. It just means that I want to be fully present for both. And next, in the other categories, I have promotions, retail apps, newsletters. There is a lot of background clutter. For example, if I receive notifications saying that there is 30% off of jeans, my brain starts thinking if I actually need a new pair, what color, what fit, and then the train of thought for my work is entirely gone. And it would take me a couple minutes to refocus back. And same with newsletters. I like to subscribe to a lot of them: tech, productivity, psychology, and the thing is that I barely check them. Whenever I see notification, I usually just swipe it away. So now all those newsletters they go to a separate folder and I check them whenever I'm free a couple times a week. What actually changed things for me wasn't some kind of new focus rule. It was realizing how much noise I was letting in without noticing. And once I started paying attention to what I was actually letting in, it became more clear to when to let it in and when to shut it out. Notifications stopped being interruptions that I had to fight off. They became the choices that I could make. And from the years when I used to work as a psychologist, I've seen just how different every person is. What feels common for one person, it might overwhelm another. What helps me focus today, it might actually distract me tomorrow. There's no single method or rules that works for every single person, even for the same person at different times. That's why focus cannot be one size fits all. You have to keep adjusting it to your own rhythm and contexts. Every time I catch myself checking Slack or email just to check, it's a signal I've drifted back into the slot machine loop. Focus isn't a universal rule. It shifts with your day, your work, even your mood. Some days, muting everything helps. Other days, you need to stay reachable. And sometimes the best approach is to understand why you keep reaching for your phone. After a lot of trial and error, I learned that focus isn't something you lock in once. It's something that you keep adjusting and refining as you go. People who stay consistent isn't the ones who find one perfect system. They're the ones who remain aware and adapt over time. And that's one of the reasons why I started building Flowdoro. Not to block distractions, but to help you match the right productivity method to the kind of work you're doing. You can decide what kind of focus you need right now instead of being forced into one version of it. Because once you start choosing what truly deserves your attention, you don't just protect your time, You rebuild trust in your own focus. If that's the kind of approach you've been searching for, subscribe and let's figure out better focus together.